Welcome to Life by Design, episode 406. Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards, and I'm joined today by my colleague, the birthday boy, Dr. Cratio Chug.
Oh, buddy. Happy to be here. And thank you for the nice wishes.
You're welcome. Happy birthday, friend.
Thanks, pal.
We are creators of Life by Design with many locations worldwide. Each week on the show, we discuss the principles and the practice of Life by Design. Today, we're talking about vitamin D. It's a big topic. It's something that I know a lot of people have interest in. It's one that's definitely changed over the course of the time that we've been doing this, which is actually 15 years, if you can believe that, or close to 15 years. There was a time where, whether it be omega-3s or vitamin D or anything along those lines, it was, something that a lot of people just, it was seen as, I don't know, what do you call it, Cratio? I don't want to say secondhand. I'm trying to think of what we call this, but it just wasn't mainstream. And, now fast forward. What's that? Alternative? Yeah, I guess so. And so you fast forward now and you realize, holy smokes, the vast majority of people in my practice take vitamin D. I did a survey inside of our private Facebook group, and I don't think I've ever had a post more engaging than the poll I did in terms of how much vitamin D people take.
Oh, nice. That's good.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Again, I know we'll get more into it. My not so secret mission is to get people to start to do these things because they're good for them, not to get them to avoid sicknesses or diseases.
Right. Well, why don't you talk about that? Talk about the concept.
Sure. So, I mean, I don't know, man. For me, the purpose of your life is to not avoid things. Like, the purpose of your life is to be happy and to live fulfilled and to go out in the world and to do the things, to be a human being. Like, I think this is like the full expression of being a human is to get out there and to do things and live this fully engaged life, instead of how I see most people living, which is, very incremental and mostly to be avoiding things. Well, I don't want to be fat, and I don't want to get the flu, and I don't want to have bad skin, and I don't want to be tired, which is very different. It sounds semantics, but it's very different than I want to be alive, and I want to live fulfilled, and I want to be happy. Right. So, most people, it seems like, and I think this would just be an interesting poll, I think most people take vitamin D to avoid something, right? Oh, flu season's coming up. I heard vitamin D is good for the immune system, so I'm going to up my vitamin D so I don't get the flu, which is fine. I mean, It's still doing something good for your body, but I would be much more happy and you'd get much more benefit if the purpose became, I'm going to take vitamin D because I know I need it to get the full benefits from my body.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, the side effect of increasing immune system function or some other body function, like you said, we're happy that people are taking it. The more we can get them to understand the principle behind it, the better it's going to be, because obviously then it's going to translate into other things. And that's really the important point, is that it doesn't matter that it's vitamin D. It matters that, we're talking about fulfilling a requirement. The body has a certain requirement. If you're deficient, you need to meet it. And that applies to many, 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 many other things with the body, whether it be protein content or exercise or sleep or water. It really, once you understand the concept, it changes the way that you think about all of these things, because instead of thinking, well, I need this for that, which we like to call it, it's more in terms of, we need this because my body is deficient in that, or we need this because my body, requires XYZ nutrient. So once you kind of flip the switch there, it just makes it all more simplified. And obviously I think you're going to get a far better result that way too.
Yeah, I totally agree. But then on the flip side, and I think here's where things get a little bit more challenging. It's really hard to isolate vitamin D in terms of something that is non-measurable, at least in terms of numbers, like the maximum performance of your body. So to justify the benefits of vitamin D, we have to look at reductionistic research, like the study that we're presenting today, right? And then we have to, you form your own conclusions based on the available data, but we have to rely on isolated measures to say, hey, look, there's evidence that taking vitamin D does in fact improve your body in various different aspects.
Right. So specifically with this study, Horatio looked at vitamin D intake as a supplement, so supplemental
Mm-hmm.
form in, I believe it was Japanese school-aged children, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it was a randomized control trial, which is great.
Yep.
And looked at 340 students, so pretty decent sample size in that sense. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a placebo group. And basically the group that took, I think it was 1,200 international units of vitamin D daily had a reduction of influenza A of 30% over the group that didn't. So, pretty much what we're talking about, which is
Yeah.
if, again, there was no, in an ideal world, we would measure and look for deficiencies. Of course, there's still debate in terms of what sufficient amounts look like, although there is a generally agreed upon range. But we could look at deficiencies and see what would happen. We talked about this with subluxations as well, and the spine is, what if we actually did measurements to see if somebody needed a correction and applied it and looked at the different outcomes? The same in this case. What if they actually needed vitamin D versus just giving everybody vitamin D? What would that look like? But nonetheless, in this case, they
Right.
gave the test group vitamin D, whether they needed it or not in that sense. And you can see why it's easy to think in terms of this for that, because they aren't testing to see if there's a deficiency. It's simply saying, we added this and we got this result 30% of the time. So, obviously something happened. There was potentially an improvement in immune system function compared to the group that didn't have it. But as I said, I would have been interested to see what it was like to assess for deficiency, take a supplement to meet a sufficiency, and then look at outcomes from there.
Yeah, no, but that's really the thing, right? So now the interpretation, you're getting into the crux of it, which is the interpretation, right? Because the interpretation for this is now, okay, well, it looks like there's a relationship between vitamin D and influenza A, which is great. That's a great conclusion. What we're saying is, even if you took vitamin D and you still got influenza A, based on all other data that's known about vitamin D, it still makes sense. You should take it because it's good for you.
Correct. If you're deficient.
If you're deficient, that's right.
Exactly.
And which is exactly the point that you were making.
Yeah. And, goes back to, because we want to apply this outside of vitamin D. So, we're talking about using a supplemental form, but it is important to note in all of the things that we call our essentials, and we call these essentials or essential supplements because they're things that your body needs to have added in because they're an essential nutrient, but your body doesn't make it in that sense. Now, that said, vitamin D is actually the one your body does make when you get exposure to the sun. So when you get exposure to UVB rays and the reaction that is created, you get vitamin D production. Now, for a lot of people, whether it be living in a place like Canada in colder months where we're not getting high exposure to UVB rays, one, because they may not be strong enough, and two, because we're wearing clothes because it's freezing cold outside. But in the summertime too, a lot of people will say, oh, but I'm in the sun, and that's great. But, I ask them, well, do you have more than 30 or 50% of your skin exposed for 20 minutes of the day at the right time? They're like, well, no, I wear this, I wear my hat, I have longer sleeves. Well, do you wear sunscreen? Oh yeah, I wear sunscreen. So, you're actually restricting the production of vitamin D. So just being in the sun doesn't mean you're getting it. So it's learning about how to acquire these things. And each one of the essentials, and this was my point, is you should be able to get them technically without adding anything in. So I can go in the sun, I could eat real food and get enough protein. I could eat, foods that don't destroy my gut bacteria, and my body could develop healthy gut bacteria and flora. I could get enough K2 if I was eating the right foods, magnesium, same things. So again, our body should be able to get what it needs. The goal of the essentials is to fill in the gaps.
Yep, I totally agree. There's also, and you talked about it, we're not evolved to get vitamin D in a liquid form. We evolved, we got the way that we are because we used to get, and we still can get, vitamin D from the sun, and I think that's an important conversation point, because getting in the sun gives your body all sorts of other kinds of benefits, right? So we're actually, we got here by getting sun, so we need to get the sun.
And we have a very similar effect when you're eating real food in general, right? I mean, that's really the point, is to isolate a nutrient, which still works to meet a requirement. It doesn't have all the other effects of eating real food. And I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is to make sure our body's sufficient in all the things it needs. And the best way to do that is by eating real food, at least from a nutritional standpoint. Same thing. It's really hard to supplement with exercise, right? You're better off moving your body. I don't even know if there is a way to supplement with exercise or get the effects. Kind of goes back to, I had this conversation a long time ago, and that's 3 years ago when the keto diet started to become popular. And you remember people had contacted us to sell exogenous ketones, because if you had higher levels of ketones in your blood, then it was easier to lose body fat. And I made the same point. My point was that artificially injecting into my body, not necessarily injecting, but artificially putting into my body the end product of doing the work isn't the same as doing the work and getting the end product. And I remember people not really understanding my point. And here we are today, and I don't think exogenous ketones had taken off as if they were expecting to, simply because the best way to have the effect of the ketogenic diet is to actually eat following the ketogenic diet rules and have higher ketone levels. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the way to go, but I'm just saying that, adding in the end stage byproduct doesn't really give you the effects.
There's an excellent, I don't know if you're familiar with the author Robert Greene, from his book Mastery. He starts the book off with saying, this is great and so in your face. Anyone looking for shortcuts by default will not acquire mastery.
Exactly.
And that just makes me think of, like, you're trying to physiologically trick your body,
right,
by dumping ketones into your bloodstream, right. Whereas ketones are the results of actions taken. That's exactly how the ketones wind up in your bloodstream.
Exactly.
You can't fake that stuff.
You can't fake that stuff. Exactly. Well, I think that really hits home the main point here, Cracio, and I'm glad you found this piece of research, because it just continues to reinforce the message that we repeat on a regular basis. Guys, in the show notes, I'm going to put the Eat by Design book. It's a free ebook. You can go grab it there at lifebydesign.com/podcast. You can also see the article. You can also join the free 30-day Eat by Design challenge. That's a mouthful to say there, Cracio. The free 30-day Eat by Design challenge. Cracio, have a great birthday today.
Thanks, buddy.
And everybody, thank you for joining the drive to 1 million families worldwide living life by design.